Welcome everybody for yet another week of online instruction. This week we're going to turn the corner and stop talking about Gladwell's Outliers and turn our attention to the last book for the term, which is Milan Kundera's Identity. This was a book that was written in 1998. It still is relevant in a lot of ways today, so it's written by Kundera, Milan Kundera, preeminent European novelist. He's an emigre writer from Czechoslovakia who left in exile in 1975 to go live in France because of his outspokenness towards the Soviet regime at that point in time. And then he later on lived in France and established residency. He was a naturalized citizen in France in 1981. And this book is not written in his first language, which is Czech, but it's written in French. Now, the assignment for this particular book is something that I've taken offline for right now because I don't want it to kind of tip the way that you're thinking about the book. And this is important because one of the things Kundera is talking about in the book is how we read texts. And by suggesting where the book is going to go, this may alter the way that you read the book. So I'm withholding that until we get to the fourth section, and then I'll put it up and talk about the the assignment in more particulars then. Until that time, what I really want to do is kind of establish what's going on with the book and the baseline characteristics for each of the two characters. Now, as you know, there's two main characters in the book. There is Jean-Marc, who is the male character, and Chantal, who is the female character. And this has importance later on when we start to talk about these characters as certain kinds of maybe archetypes. Okay? What I really want to talk about is what goes on in the first couple of chapters here, in the first 42 pages. And some of the characteristics that we start to see developing about these two characters. Basically, at a certain level, at a very simple level for this book, it's a love story. Right? It's a love story between these two characters, Jean-Marc and Chantal. We open up with Chantal being at a hotel restaurant. She's waiting for Jean-Marc to come meet her for a weekend getaway in Normandy. And all of a sudden there we are presented with her at the hotel restaurant where she starts to watch this television show called Lost to Sight. This is important. We'll come back and touch on it later. Then shortly after that we get a scene where F goes to visit, Jean-Marc goes to visit F, a character from his past, an old friend. We learn in their discussion when Jean-Marc is visiting him at his deathbed that F has, betrayed him in some fashion earlier in life. And it's a betrayal that Jean-Marc, even though the guy is on his deathbed, cannot find a way to forgive him for his betrayal. And as we'll see later on, one of the things that tells us about Jean-Marc, that he's very hypersensitive, I would say, to people betraying him. He just simply can't get over the fact that this person has, not been true to him, or seems to be something other than what he presents himself to be. So much so that on his deathbed he just can't get over that. Then shortly thereafter we switch to the beach scene where Chantal is waiting for Jean-Marc. She's gone to sleep from the night before at the hotel bar. She wakes up and she starts to stroll the beach and realizes that she just isn't able to turn heads the way she used to. And she's thinking about her relationship to men in general, and she's kind of distraught by that. Jean-Marc then arrives at the beach and is looking for his beloved, Chantal, and is excited to meet her and thinks he sees her, and then all of a sudden he realizes that the woman he thinks is Chantal is not her. that the woman he thinks is her is somehow older and more pathetic and uglier. And he kind of gives himself a hard time about this and doesn't really forgive the notion that he could mistake this other older, uglier woman for his beloved Chantal. And, we get to see that later on. He does come and meet her, and at that point in time where Chantal reveals her insecurity about her looks, and she says, "Men don't turn to look at me anymore." And that's a kind of crucial period in the book where we see Chantal's insecurity arise, and that's one of the things that we get to know about her, is that she doesn't see herself as attractive very much anymore. And then this kind of sets off, another chain of events later on. The other thing we get to see shortly thereafter is we start to move backwards in time with respect to Chantal's life. And we get to see her previous life where she was married and had a child. We learn that she loses that child, the child dies, and she feels very put upon by the family to have another child, so put upon that it causes her to get out of that marriage and dissolve the marriage. And from that we kind of get to see that she's very hypersensitive to people invading her privacy and her space and her sense of being able to make decisions about her private life. So that's another aspect of who she is that's crucially important to keep track of, and how it proceeds through the rest of the book. The other thing that we learned about Chantal is that she works for an advertising firm, and that she sometimes hires the person she likes, sometimes she hires the person who's going to be capable for the job, and we get a sense of her two-facedness there, right? Which is something we'll pick up on later in the book. The other thing we learn is that she works for this guy who is the head of the funeral parlor, or the funeral firm that she's doing her advertisement for, and that he's kind of an old Marxist. Okay, so that this is important later on as well. And then finally we go at the end of this section and learn a little bit about Chantal when she was 17, 18-year-old, a younger woman, and we learn that she was a real kind of head turner, a real looker at that point in time, and she had this mysterious ability to impact men and their reaction to her. This is important because, of course, we see from earlier that her inability to do that anymore really has kind of shaken her, and it lends some understanding to why she might say something like, "Men don't turn to look at me anymore," because she was used to turning heads, all right? And now she presumably isn't able to do that. Is it because she's older? Is it because of some other reason? So those are the main points right now. And to rehash, Jean-Marc has issues with betrayal. Chantal has issues about her own ability to attract the gaze of men and her attractiveness, her sexual, attractiveness, if you will. And then the other thing is that we learn that she is kind of hypersensitive to other people coming in and invading her space and telling her what she needs to do. So for right now, that's what we need to take away from this section of the book, and we'll pick up those themes later on. That's it, and we'll see you on Thursday.